Unfortunately, it's not a saw log because of what's in the middle. But makes a heck of a good test log. And I'll make fun of the guys online. Right about this time of year, that hard maple is just rock hard. You know, it'll make the fastest saw look slow. It's all frozen, you know. But this stuff here, it cuts nice and clean. And it'll make firewood. I'll come back with a tractor and drag out what we don't use. The basswood over there, it's just junk wood. We'll just cut it up. It might make a good test log for the small saws. But today really isn't all about that. It's just about coming out and enjoying the woods and having fun. Yeah. That's a freaking workout.
And you didn't have it in you, huh? We gotta harvest a tree with these. I gotta get that 1010 dialed in and we'll play around.
All right.
That's it. Now we can put the air filter back on. Make a couple cuts with this, and then we got to pick a McCulloch tree. It'll have to do, Walter. We're in the woods. We don't have any modern saws.
How many cc's is those things?
They're like 55, 56, something like that.
Okay. So that would be analogous to a 455.
Yeah. Or an XL12, which was the saw that this really went up against in the marketplace. The other thing too is I actually got a chain brake.
Does it work?
Yeah. It's a functional chain brake.
No kidding. I'll kill the second pull start. The first one was the highway pull start. And I was like disappointed and I wanted to blame the highway pull start. I don't think it is at all. I think what is going on here is the flywheel stepped out a little bit. You know, not much. And I think it's interfering in here. This is the Farmer Tech one, just shattered it. Might cut a little better. This is a cine chisel. Bob gave me a roll of full chisel, 404, and I'll eventually put that on there, but I want to get some use out of that and, you know, start learning how to get that saw running easy and increase the efficiency of the cut using that equipment right there. That's the game here. This is not a tree I particularly want to take, and look how it comes back at us like that. So there's going to be stuff hitting the ground from above probably. Man, it's a nice tree. Root balls coming up out of the ground is what's happening to it.
So how's your shoulders feel?
Oh, that's a freaking workout. Getting our exercise today, that's for sure. Tweak and tune this saw a little bit. You know, I didn't do the best job in the rakers, but it made a big difference in how fast it cuts. Need to raise the idle just a little bit. This stuff here is the real deal.
Huh?
This is the real deal. Hardwood.
Yes, it is.
Camera is on. This fire.
This is not one of our better fires, but it's been one of our better days.
I'd say that's about right. The fire's coming around. We might have to throw some more stuff on there. So what did we learn today? Anything?
Yeah, we got kind of a bunch of different things. We didn't have any focus because this wasn't really planned. It was just like, hey, look at the forecast. It's late January. What's today, the 21st or something like that?
Yeah.
That 1010 needs an air filter, and I think we know where we can get that.
Yeah.
Down at Bob's.
Well, I kind of wanted to do the 660, but that starter came apart. But it brings up a good point because it's not the starter. I had killed a highway starter and I thought it was... This is kind of like a deja vu for me, where it takes a couple of catastrophic failures before you start adding up the evidence to figure out what it is. So I think the solution to me is to you take that flywheel and stick it on the lathe and remove some material and carry on from there.
You know, we talked this morning about debugging some of these saws, but that's like a ridiculous amount of time going in and out of those things, swapping cranks and stuff to debug them.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, it's part of the R&D thing. You know, it brings up a couple of different things, you know, that the idea that you can't really expect like parts from all these different vendors to match up as well, and that's probably what's going on there. You know, this stuff's coming from all over the place, and
yeah, it's true. I mean, you think about it. the OEM is kind of like the standard, right?
Yeah.
And that, I keep thinking of the root mean square, RMS. But basically, the mean of the different tolerances is going to be out OEM, and the aftermarket parts can be out of tolerance by a certain amount and still work. But then what you get is a situation, probably what's going on there, where you have two different aftermarket vendors on the opposite ends of the tolerance range, and then that tolerance stack is more than it would normally be for either of those parts being put on OEM parts. It might work with an OEM flywheel.
Yeah, but then here again, don't forget, this gets into that, drawing conclusions from limited data, So
Just because I had one that blew up and there's a lot of exposure because it's on video, doesn't mean that they're all going to be that way.
Well, just a lot of them are running.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of them are out there running. It's just, you can't.
I think the whole idea of our videos was just to sort of document our experience. And I think what happens is people draw too many conclusions from that. We happen to live it, so we showed it, sort of ramble through life, put it on camera, and show you the things I've gone through.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that whole thing for years now, and I don't think it'll ever sink in, but, it's a lot of times when somebody, like there's an official test taking place in Manitoba.
Oh boy.
With a 550 and a 261, and the thing that it's official in a sense, but I think in the sense that he's comparing one example of this and one example of that, and the conclusions he's drawing are valid, applying only to those two saws. And a lot of times the mistake that guys make, and they say like, and this 1010 here was, it was okay, but I know that 1010s run better. And a lot of times people see something and they say, and I'll, like, the 346. And they should say, this 346.
Right.
Because they're only, the evidence that they're basing their conclusion on is often just like one particular saw. And it used to be, guys would argue about like the 372 beating the 044 or the other way around. And any two individual saws, one may beat the other, but it doesn't mean that all 372s are going to be all 044s. It's not going to happen. You could have two of the same saw, and then one beats the other one, and what are you going to say then?
Goes into the concept of the tolerance stack, and I should probably do a video on that from the manufacturing perspective. And I think the best way of trying to come up with a way of describing it is this, is we all know compression. The change in compression, either more or less, can make a radical change in how a saw runs, right?
Yeah.
Especially these simple engines. Imagine from the center of the crank to the center line of the rod bearing, right? The center line of the rod bearing to the top of the wrist pin bearing. The center line of the wrist pin bearing to the top of the piston. Those are three significant dimensions. And let's say they vary plus or minus 3 thousandths, 2 thousandths, all right? And all of them are at the long end of that. So now you have a crank that's 2 thousandths more stroke. You have a connecting rod that's 2 thousandths longer with a slop in the bearings. And you got a piston that's 2 thousandths longer. So they're all on the one end of the tolerance stack. And now you've got 2, 4, 6 thousandths difference between the center line of that rod bearing and the crown of the piston that has more compression. The saw is going to run better than one that might be all the dimensions on the other side, which
Right.
now has 6 thousandths less. You have a swing of 12 thousandths, and that's a noticeable difference in the way the saw runs. So, like with this aftermarket stuff, the tolerance range is going to be greater on those than it is in OEM. And I really even hesitate to show the highway one coming apart now. And I'll talk about it, but I'm not going to show it because it doesn't matter. Now that I understand why the starters failed, I don't want to put it out in the video that particular starter failed, because it didn't fail because of its issue at all. It failed because of
Something took it out.
something else took it out. And you got to wonder when you look back, I mean, even on some of my videos, how much of that happened. We actually had to go through a whole video, what's in the chain, to get the concept out that when you're cutting cookies, there are so many variables in there. Just because you saw a 12-second cut and then a 13-second cut, there's other things that come into play that would have made that 1 second difference, other than the saw being faster than the other saw. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we, every once in a while, and I think maybe this is what this is going to morph into for our closing concept, is we got to go back and sort of set the framework here. And what we're doing is we both enjoy chainsaws. Look at these things. I had fun with that big old lunk of aluminum today because
Not when you were carrying it up the hill.
Oh, that was exercise. But the thing is that we're sort of sharing the hobby. We're sharing the fact that we enjoy the stuff. And yeah, we go off and do a launch on a how-to here and there. But the basic premise is we're sharing the experience and hoping other people kind of enjoy the same things that we're enjoying. And we're trying to share that mindset as compared to being the lecture on how this one's better than that one with a little measuring stick up all the time. That's really not what we're trying to do. At least I'm not.
No.
And yeah, I mean, we get into that a little bit, but that's not where the heart is. That's not where the essence is. I mean, case in point is we had more fun doing those damn junk pile builds. And the whole idea behind that is you can go off into these tangents about how you have to get everything to the nth degree perfect in order to have a running saw. Of course, Bob and I, we have this personality quirk is wherever the herd goes, we go 180 degrees the other direction. So after seeing all this stuff online about you got to have the perfect this and the perfect that, and if you don't do it exactly this way, your saw's not going to run good enough to matter. We go and take all the junk we can, turn it into a running saw and cut wood, and kind of proving the point or making the point is that no, I mean there's a wide range of variables that you can work with instead of up with a cutting saw. It's fun.
Well, yeah. Again, this 1010 here, you know, I got it to the point where it was running good enough to work with for sure.
Yeah.
And when I was cutting with it, most of the time, what I was thinking was, this thing sounds great. I love the way this thing barks. You know, so it's more than just, you know, it's like, you know, some guys it's like all about the performance thing, and you know, it's like, you know, it's fun, but yeah, when you were talking a little bit ago about like how many guys are like into this now, you know, we made quite a few friends just, you know, from the videos.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is, like, you know, we're still just the two of us.
That's it.
And the amount of people, I mean, there's thousands of people watching this stuff now, which is amazing because, you know,
Did you ever think that?
I almost can't watch our own stuff. It's like, oh my God, did I say that? But, you know, I hope everybody understands that, you know, I really enjoy, you know, the contact that I have, you know, but like calls at the store sometimes really don't come at convenient times. And it's a shame because there's a couple guys, and I won't name them, but to tell you the truth, most of the guys that call the store and want to talk saws, I'd actually rather talk to them than the people walking in the door. But but the reality is you can't, you know. And you know, it's been great, like, you know, lately because there's not that much. It's just kind of, you know, not that busy right now. But God, when everything kicks in May, you know, everybody just needs to understand that, you know, if we don't respond right away, it's not because we're you know,
Blowing you off.
yeah, we're not blowing anybody off. It's just like, whoa, it's just
It's
can't
got to
happen.
be more than we can handle.
Yeah, it's kind of multiplying to the point where, like, Jesus, you know,
I think
because I could spend all day talking saws on the phone, but then I wouldn't get any work done.
Right.
You know? So, plus, you can't tie up the store phone all day.
Right.
Actually, the best way to contact me is actually the private messages, you know, on the sites.
Yep.
Because that way I can get them, and then when I, you know, because let's face it, when a guy calls the store, they go, hey, what's going on? You know, it's like he doesn't know if there's nobody in the store or like 6 people in the store. And most guys are cool to say, hey, am I calling at a bad time? And sometimes I just say, yeah, this is a bad time. So, but that you know, it's like, because sometimes, you know, it's we just don't want anybody to feel like we're getting snobby or anything, but just you can only catch so much of it, you know, and deal with it promptly.
So what if we do this? What if we just say to all our friends out there, really the best way of connecting us is through the messaging. That way, you know, we can actually engage. And I do a lot on the messaging on the YouTube channel.
Right.
And I can actually engage with the person and you know, answer questions, or if I don't have the answer, I can go and talk to him, and he always has the answer man here.
Yeah.
So what if we thought about a live stream sometime? You know, pick a time where, you know, we kind of do our stuff, and then I'll say, here's a good time. We'll have something like this and just put it up on live stream and let people get in there. So we got to talk about some stuff here pretty quick before it runs out of battery.
We got to talk about the Oregon stuff.
Yeah.
The new EXL chain. I'm not hyping, and I'm not just doing this because we got friends in Oregon or anything like that. But the truth is, if the new chain was a flop, we probably wouldn't talk about it at all.
That's correct.
You know, we wouldn't want to like trash it. But the truth is, I was impressed with it. I liked the way it cut, and you know, concentrating on what Greg said, you know, this whole thing about the feed pressure, I kind of get it now. You know, that's not, like you said, that's not a term we've been using.
No.
But you know, when he explains it, you know, there's some science there. And I thought that chain cut good, and it was really smooth. It was very smooth.
I absolutely agree. My impression is this, and I'm not sure how to put words around it. He's learned how to put words around it, and I have not. But you know when you get on a chain where if you start pushing too hard, it takes a saw down? Or if you take too much pressure off, it's not cutting? And there's like this narrow band in there, the sweet spot where it wants to cut. What I found was that chain had a wide sweet spot where pushing versus not pushing. There was a wide range of pressures that I could apply to that bar, and it was still cutting. And the kind of things that you would see, it's like, I don't know if I'm going to show it, that saw there. That sweet spot of where it's cutting good is very, very narrow.
Yeah.
It either bites and stalls the saw, or you're not getting any chips. And I'll tell you what, that makes a difference, especially when you start getting tired, or you're in a situation where you don't have a good angle. Kind of like the last cut. Boy, it was an embarrassing cut. But that thing was so heavy, I needed to kneel on the ground in order to get the right angle to get that perfect.
Yeah, because it's all on your back. If you put some of it on your knee.
Yep.
The other thing, and we'll have to talk about that chain again sometime. I gave out some samples to a couple of my pro guys, all right? And because, you know, we took a new chain out of the box and, you know, we made, you know, a dozen cuts with it, compared it to the old chain, okay? And the conclusions we drew from that are valid based on that limited amount of information.
That's correct.
Right now, what we need to hear from, the guys that are really going to, you know, how many board feet can you put out with that chain? You know, how does it, you know, so the thing is, you know, that stuff is going to come out later, you know, as I get some feedback from these guys. There's one that's like a father and son team, and they're just hammering it all the time. And these are the guys that told me, you know, some of this chain is good, some of it's not, and I'd rather have this stuff that's made in the USA than made in Canada, or, you know, this.
Yeah.
So, you know, and some guys like, you know, the Husky chain feels different. So there are people that notice really small differences in the chain. So, you know, I'm not going to say that they're fussy, but they notice things, right? So these guys, I want to hear what they have to say about it. But I'm cutting it today myself. I would be kind of eager, like some of my other chains. You know, they start getting a little dull, or I hit a rock, and whatever they may be. And that's, to me, that's like an excuse to put EXL on, because I like that chain.
You know what it's like to me is, to those people out there who've ever ice skated or played hockey, is a good sharp chain is like a good set of skates. If they're nice and sharp, you can cut, you can turn, you can stop.
Oh yeah.
And when the skates are not right, even if they got one edge off or one not quite there, it takes your confidence right away. And that chain was like a nice sharp set of skates. That's my analogy.
Yeah, I've been playing hockey for 40 years. That's a good analogy. I agree with that one.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, so we get thumbs up on that. This doesn't have to be on
Let me
there.
see if we have anything left. Okay, I might be off by now. Yeah, we're still here.
Well, like we said earlier, this is a good day, and there is 2 more months of winter. You don't necessarily get a day like this falling on a weekend too often in the winter. So, but a lot of it's, you know, like to keep this hobby interesting, is you got to like bounce around a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get together and do the same topic on the same saws. And yeah, here's another 372, and I did exactly what I did to the last 10. You know, I mean, that's boring for us. You can't make a video. Who the heck's going to watch that?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, so we're going to go off, and there's going to be some McCulloch stuff and some home light stuff, and kind of play with some of the old American saws.
And on that McCulloch, I want to start playing with chain configurations on that. So there's a whole new area to launch off into. And you can take a screwdriver and tinker on the carburetor. You can take a file and tinker on the chain. You know, you got all these little things you can do with that saw during the day. In fact, it's things you have to do. But that's part of the fun of that thing is there's that interaction between it and you. That's part of the fun of that whole thing. You don't get that with some of the more modern saws. But good day. This was a good day. We had a fire.